You already have that one, I think, yeah.
Oh, these are like all his poems.
Yeah.
All right, is anybody on the
read
phone?
them and tell them to do them.
I actually told her
Okay.
this is what I like.
We're about a couple minutes away from getting
But I
started.
will read these.
You got the emails?
I did.
Okay. We'll probably start with the one called, it's the Crippen charts. It says incorporated nouns and preverbs. I'm trying to get Illuminate to launch.
There's two of each, I think. Is there? Mm-hmm. Nice, good use of whence. I think this is the one I said I liked. Well, he was not here.
It's too late.
The papers have disappeared forever.
All right. Is ready?
Okay.
Here we go. All right. So everybody take a look at this handout. First one we're going to look. So we spent some time looking at relational bases and prefixes that talk about location, direction, and relation to other things. This is a list from Crippen's Verbal Structure Handout, which I'll make some new ones of that for you guys because there's a couple of updates. But what's interesting about these is these are what we call incorporates or preverbs, and these pop up inside of verb phrases. And the types of things that pop up in verb phrases are these relational nouns that we've been looking at, and also body parts. These are two things that pop up into verbs, and they kind of occupy this space. And so what you see on the category on the left-hand side is one space, and what you see on the category on the right-hand side is another space, which means only one of those could pop up. And so it's sort of like there's a slot there, and something could go in that slot. It's not like something has to go in that slot. A verb has to have a classifier and a stem, but it does not have to have one of these, but it can. So, just to sort of get us warmed up and thinking about it, let's go around the room and just read it, and read the prefix, and then the meaning, which is right next to it. Starting from the top left. Right, so those are two related things, and it could mean either one when it comes into the verb. But in the verb, the form it takes is j, and you're going to see that pop up in all kinds of verbs. But it means it has something to do with the hand or possession. So on its own, you would say jin for hand and ji for possession.
Is that like when you have something in your hand?
Yeah, like ji, it's located in my possession.
Oh, my turn.
But it doesn't have to be in the hand necessarily.
No, and it doesn't need the wu at the end either. Like I could say dasa jiwu, what do you have? And then you could say kuhida jiwu. But you could also say, I could say gusu we kuhida. Where is that pencil? Or guha kuhida. And if you took my pencil, you could say ji. It's in my possession, right? Where the is just sort of serves as a focus particle.
But
Here
if
it
it
is,
was
right?
like in your pocket, you would still say the same thing.
Yeah, because it's in your possession. But it is related to grabbing.
All right. And ka is a mouth.
Yeah, so these come from a, which is mouth, but it also just generically means an opening, right? So you get a hot for door. So there's the cover for the opening, right? A wut is the doorway. It's the hole that is the opening. Is also mouth, but it pops up for rivers and other things like that. The one with the K is most often used for verbs where you're sort of pretending to do something as well. So it has a slightly altered meaning, which I think we're still trying to figure out. But when I see the K instead of the X, it usually implies that someone is pretending or lying, perhaps.
Maybe telling a story.
Is that a yes?
True. Inside my emotions.
So tu is inside, and it can get confusing because tu is also the first person plural pronoun. So you just watch for its location in terms of the verb. We'll look at a verb chart that shows Crippen and Cable have worked on updating what Lear had, where the stem or the root is called zero position, and then we go plus from there, and we're going to the left of the root, and we go minus, and we're going to the right of the root. So that's how this sort of thing is structured. So we're looking at plus 11, so it's fairly far over as far as verb. And the numbers just say, here's this position, here's the things that could go in it, here's this position, here's the things that could go in it.
Isn't also to be inside a closed container?
Yeah, and that's what it comes from, is to be inside of something, but it's also related to emotions. Like you could say,
Inside a closed
yeah, literally you're saying inside myself. This is what's going, like tubu yak a. So tu is inside, wu means to be located somewhere, and then you could say sagu, like happiness is inside me. I'm happy. Tubu sagu. And so usually when you're talking about emotions, you're using that tubu. So the tu, when it enters into a verb, it could mean inside something, but it could also mean emotion. So one of the classic examples is I'm putting Tlingit language, I'm putting knowing Tlingit language inside myself. So it's this reflexive kind of act. I'm doing it to myself.
Sha is for head.
So sha is head. It pops up all over the place in verbs. It comes from a body part.
Sha.
What's that?
Said sha. Butthead.
Butthead.
Could that
You know,
al- Could that also just mean the top of something?
It could mean the top of something, because you'd say, we keep in mind that body parts have body parts, because you'd say iksha, the head of my finger, chiksha, the head of my upper arm, kisha, my kneecap, which is the head of my knee. So it is kind of figurative as well. But yes, the head or the top of something. But it's not the top of, like, mountains. That's different. Mountains and hills have their own way to say that.
You say
Sha, yeah, but so you'd say sha, shaki. So it's related, but it literally means on top of the head. What's that?
The so close to Shawshank Redemption.
Oh.
Really poetic.
The Shashaki Redemption. Mountaintop Redemption.
Shu. Shu is end.
Shu. Yep. So whenever you see that pop up in verbs, like shuwahi is something that's said quite a bit, which means it ran to the end. It's over. Right? It's all it ran out. Kutshuwahi would mean it kind of died off. It literally means lost, ran to the end. It ran to the end and is lost. This also pops up in quite a few place names and house names. Deishu is the name for Haines, the end of the road. So it pops up on that, you say Dakshu, the end of the table. So this is how they sit in verbs, but they function, a lot of them function as these relational nouns or these things that talk about where something is. So it could be at the end. You could say, Dakshu, it's at the end of my finger. You could say it's at the end of the table. And there's a house called Deishu Hit, and the Deishu Hit Tan, or the Deishi Tan. So that's where that comes from. The end of the trail house people. Nose, point, or beak. It can also be a beak. And so it pops up in verbs. Usually when it's in a verb, it's talking about the point of something, like because this could be a point of land or this could be a point of something. And so there's something going on about a point of something. Good. Yakutoshi?
Sorry, I lost the mute button.
Oh,
Shu, sh. Oh, we did that one. Se, say, voice.
yeah, so say is voice, but there's another one that could pop up here, which is sa, it means voice, but it also means neck. So if you look in the verb dictionary under SA, you're going to see a whole bunch of things like sadatai for a scarf. It's the thing that warms around the neck. And you'll see all these things related to the neck, but it also is voice. Se and sa, they're kind of interchangeable. And for different speakers, it could mean voice or it could mean neck. It depends on the context, but they come from that same word. Mm. Yeah, fur, chao or chawu. Chawu is typically how you hear it, and that means hair or fur or a porcupine quill. And so on its own, when you talk about hair in Tlingit, you just talk about where it's at, and then you throw chawu after it. So you've got shechawu, inichawu for your armpit hair, and you could have kukyik chawu, so that has a body part, a relational noun, and the hair part.
Those here, those do.
So yikhawu, right? Because it's inside the nose, and so it just gets very descriptive, right? And then with Tlingit, it's just very matter of fact. You know, you're talking about all these different types of things. The one thing is whiskers are different. They're zai. Like chadadzai would be your mustache, and yadadzai would be your beard. So around the whiskers around the mouth and the whiskers around the chin. Okay?
Good. Base or what?
Yeah, the base or the butt, the bottom of something. This is one you probably don't see as often. You don't see that often. But these, they do. They will pop up in verbs. And when we're getting into Tlingit, the speakers who could speak the best, they just knew how to use all of these different ones. And what you'll see is a stem and a classifier, and you can start adding these things, and then they change the way the verb functions.
Bottom, head of bay.
And that's another one that's probably not used that often, but so it would be like the head of a bay, or again the bottom of something. And there's a number of different ways to sort of talk about the bottom of something. We'll see that one pop up a few times.
So the top, bottom of the table.
If we were talking about the bottom of the table, you would probably be talking about the underside of it. right? So you probably say nadaktayika, the surface on underneath it. So it's probably it would literally be the bottom of some kind of something that sits usually. But this one, it's a rare form. I'm not sure. I haven't seen examples of it used.
Da. Around, surrounding, periphery.
And so when you see the small t at the bottom right, that's telling you Tongass dialect. So Tongass dialect would have a da. It would end with this H sound. Nobody speaks Tongass anymore. But it's good to know these differences so that if you listened to a speaker, especially years from now when the language skills are phenomenal and you listen to a speaker and you're like, why is there that sound there? Then you'll know what you're hearing. And so da is around, surrounding, and this is one we've seen in a bunch of places.
Is that like shada?
Yeah, shada, that's the around part. Yeah, and same with adadzai, da is that around part. So it just means in that vicinity, or it could mean surrounding it.
Ta.
Never seen that one, but you know it's
Question marks.
yeah. So there's a couple where like they haven't quite been figured out yet, but they've been seen in examples, and they have this way where they slightly alter the verb, right? Like so, I could say, "Sene" means to be doing something. You made it, right? You made something. If you say "kasane," you're knitting something, probably because things are going over other things. But if you say "ye jine," you're working because the hands are in there, right? And then, like you'd say, someone might say, "What are you doing?" You'd say "ye jehane," I'm working, right? And it just means my hands are doing something. And so it's sort of rooted in that. Who's reading?
Who, among, amidst, within.
Who. So this one, some examples of this one that you'd see as the relational noun is ha hu yuchatungi, which is what we'd call oratory or public speaking. It means people among language. Ha hu yuchatungi. And that's what they'd say when you stand up to speak in front of people. It's a different mode of speech than when you're just hanging out. The other one is it's in some place names. Favorite places in the world is called Au Sani Hu. What does that mean? We've covered it. Au Sani Hu. It's just north of Skankway. Au Sani Hu.
Big lake?
Little lakes. Hu.
Within the lakes or
Among
Among
the
the
little lakes. So who most commonly I would translate as among. Right? Like I was among those things. I was there. Okay. So khan is near something, and we'll hear this one quite a bit. Like if you say akhani kanu, come and sit by me, right? Or they might say good day sa yanikut, where are you going? Akhat khande yanaku, I'm going to be by my auntie, right? So this is you would use it in terms of direction, because you wouldn't say akhat day, I'm not going to my aunt, I'm going to be next to her. So khan. And then he also, the term khana for like a sweetheart or spouse or whatever, that literally means the one who is next to me. Khana. Yaktushi?
Space between, intersect.
So on its own, this one usually appears as ak, and that means between two things. Ak. And then if you're the saddle of the mountain you call sha'ak, in between the mountains, right? And so it could also mean something that is literally right in between two things. And so it's a relational term. It's used quite a bit to talk about where things are located. A. So there's a verb related to this, and there's other places to mean like to be behind something, or sometimes to be hiding behind something, so that something is blocking the view. In this case, N is northern, S is southern, I don't remember what R is. Transitional. I think R is transitional, which means there's this transitional dialect which is somewhere in between Southern Tlingit, which we call Haenya and Sanya, Wrangell and Prince of Wales. And then Cake and Sitka, and some people in Angoon speak this transitional Tlingit, which is somewhere in between that southern style and the northern style. And it really comes down to tone, how you take care of tone. That's the biggest thing. There's also, every community might have different words for the same thing, or they might pronounce things different. Northern and southern, one of the other big things is for certain words like Greece would say sak echi. That's how we'd say that in the northern area. The people who are from Haines and Klukwan and Juneau area. And people from Wrangell and Prince of Wales would say sak echi. Sak echi. So instead of an A, it's an E sound. And so that's the difference between these two.
Landward side.
Yeah. Og means, it also means behind something, but it means, like, it literally would mean, like, here's the house, here's the ocean in front of it, you were behind the house, away from the ocean. So that's how that one is differed. It differs. And so it's a shore-based one, where the other one just means you're just behind something. So it's kind of cool that the ocean and the shoreline especially continues to pop up in the language. So you would say ak, it's up on the land and it's behind something.
Yik, inside, concave.
Yeah, so generally inside an open container. So we've seen this one, yaw yik, as yik, de yik, inside these open types of things.
Would you fall under that category?
I don't think it might. But I think there might be one for specifically being...
Would it be like, isn't there one where it's like within like walls or something like that?
Yeah, there's yi, which means, and there's neish, which means inside a house or a building. So it might be yik. I'll check. I'll see which one.
It's an open container, though.
Yeah,
So would that
but yik usually implies it's open to the top.
the volcano is open to the top. It's just the bottom part you're scared of.
Did you say volcano or cave?
Okay.
Cave,
Okay.
inside a cave.
Sorry.
If you were inside of a volcano, that would be yik. Until you burned up. And it'd be nothing.
Ye, underneath, beneath.
Yi, so yi we see, a lot of times when it's used we would hear it as tayi. Tayi would mean underneath something. And it gets, tayi is very closely related to diyi, and diyi would mean just generally down below. But tayi would mean underneath. So it's a ta as opposed to a di. But yi generally just means underneath or beneath something. Yeah, you'd say dis yich chat yati. I'm underneath the moon. Which is there's when you see a sunbeam or a moonbeam, sunbeam is qakan us yi. Beneath the foot of the sun, And then a moonbeam is discus yi, beneath the foot of the moon. Yeah, qi. And this comes from the verb qin, which means to sit in the plural form. Probably. So if there's a question mark, that means there's some uncertainty. If there's two question marks, that means it's kind of just a wild guess. Still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, what's the little square root?
Oh, that's a good question. That means it's related to a verb root. So
Yeah,
Crippen
like square
and
root.
Cable mark the stem
That's good.
with that sign. And when that sign pops up that's telling you that's a stem, you can go look it up.
Seems like a fun linguist joke. It's like it's a square root. Oh, it's related to a root. What's that?
It's a square root.
Square root.
I get it. I just got that. Very proud of it. Where are we? Ask how keek.
Gin, keen, tail flipper.
So again, we got body parts, and sometimes these are body parts from other things that pop up and come in. Okay. So on its own, this one would be cheek, and it's the upper arm generally, but it would contract to be shoulder within a verb form. And so again, body parts can describe place names, and they can also exist right within the verbs.
Could you give an example? Like the shoulder or something?
I'd have to find.
Like at least as opposed to calling it the head of your arm. Like for your shoulder.
Right. So like usually you do talk about just your upper arm, and usually if there's some. I can't think of a place name, but I'll try and find a verb that's using it so we can look at an example. But really it would just mean the upper arm of something, and it would probably have more to do with the shape or the function. Yakutishi?
On. Limb.
Sheesh. On. Yeah, so I haven't seen many examples of that one. But the key is to have this sort of sheet with you. So as you start encountering, especially these really long verbs, what that's telling you is there's more and more of these smaller components going in, which are affecting the way that the verb functions.
What does a small question mark mean?
That's a good question. I think... So if there's a dash,
He doesn't know what it attaches to.
yeah, I think if there's a dash, that means it has to attach to something, right? And if there's not a dash, it means it can sit on its own.
So the
And if there's a
mark,
question mark, I think that
He
means
doesn't
he's
know.
not sure if it can sit on its own.
Gotcha.
His guess is that it needs to be attached to something. But I'll double check that. Tzedek.
Neck, throat.
Tzedek, so that's your neck or your throat. Sa would specifically kind of be the front of your throat. Tzedek would be related to your back, which is dich is your back. Chetuch is your throat, as in sort of the inside of your throat. Sa is the front of it.
Walk plus cut is walk. I.
Yep, so walk. I can pop up in verbs, and a lot of times it would be wak-ka. It would just get the ka in front of it quite often. It doesn't need it, it might pop up. And the ka on its own may or may not be another part. It's usually just to attach to this part.
Sok plus ka is ok, bone, alienable, ka one's bone.
The alienable form is which might pop up in the front of, so these would pop up usually outside of the verb itself. Some of them tend to attach to other things, but hot often would exist outside in front of the verb.
Us, foot, leg.
Yep. So us comes from the foot or the leg. Sort of like jin. Jin could also mean the arm. Us can mean the foot or the leg. Usually in the context of how you're using it, people will know which one you're talking about. So eyebrow. So again, we see more body parts that are popping up in verb phrases. This one is more rare than the others. Yeah.
Duke, skin.
And then the alienable form would be qadugu, which would be one skin, which is, you hear that in a lot of stories when someone's going out collecting furs that say like nusk dugu, nakatsei dugu. They're talking about getting the hides of different animals. And so a duk would pop up in a verb form sometimes. Yeah, so tlaka is inside the mouth, tletuch is inside the throat. Tla could be referencing sort of either one of those, but it's usually inside of the mouth or inside of the opening. All right, yakdushi.
Click, beak, finger, sha, head, click, sha, fingertip.
So either one of these forms could pop up. Ik, ik. If you get into the northern areas, they say ek. But in the verb forms, it condenses to ek. And sometimes it's ek, sha. Okay. Ki. So ni. So when you get the e-e-y, you start making the e sound, and then you curl your lips back. So it's almost like you're smiling as you say it. Ki. And that just gently pulls the tone up, but it's not necessarily a rising tone.
I like how they're
Key.
similar. The English Tlingit comparison, ni, ki.
Yeah, ni and ki. That's one that's
Yeah.
a little easier to remember. Okay.
Tuk was cut. Tuk, cut. Kneeling.
So kneeling, yeah. Probably pretty rare to see it in a verb, but it could pop up.
A two is a mouth plus two inside.
Atu. So usually there's only one of these in that given slot, which is why sometimes some of them combine. And it's actually, it acts as one, but it's really two of them mashed together. Right, lucky you.
Pressure.
Anus. Took butt plus a mouth.
And so tokhe, which is more proof that A is really just an opening, right? So there you have it. And this could pop up in verb phrases. I really want to find a verb that uses this one just to see what the verb is doing. But a lot of times these pop up to alter the verb in terms of what kinds of things are happening. And in this case, it wouldn't even necessarily, like say if you had some kind of container and there was a hole in the bottom, you would still call that tokhe. That's what you would probably call that. And so, yeah, that's pretty good.
Da, it, da, eat, it.
It. So there's a joint.
Talk. Take. Part.
So teich, another body part that pops up into verb phrases at a time. So we'll just keep an eye on these, and as we encounter more and more verbs, they start really straightforward, and this is how they get more complicated, as things start getting added to the front, and a few things can be added to the back. But for most Tlingit verbs, you can put a whole bunch of stuff in the front. You can usually put one or two things as a suffix. All right, so let's run through the next one. So these next ones are preverbs, so they're separated from the verb, but they pop up before the verb comes, and they alter the way the verb functions. Oh, okay, so if you see a Y with the two dots, just pronounce it as a Y. All it really tells you is that in certain instances, it will change to a W if there's a U or an OO right before it. And this is the way all Tlingit used to be. So, you say du yeti, his or her child. Whereas a long time ago, you used to say du wadi, and that's how you would say his or her child. Du yakutzagi, his or her intelligence. But now that's phased out, but you still see it within grammar. And it's important to sort of know that it's there, because when we start to look at some conjugations and break them apart, we'll see how it's functioning. So the third one is Tongass dialect, and so what you would have in this case, in Northern Tlingit, you'd say Qone or Qunaye. Tongass Tlingit did not have tone, so they'd say Qone, Qone. So it would have this hard stop on it instead. Yeah, read the descriptions.
For beginning or start, like an inceptive.
Yeah. So Qone, you'd say Qone yanagut. He is beginning to walk. Right? So Qone comes before to say it's starting to happen. And this one is used quite a bit in verbs, especially in storytelling, and then it started to whatever. So you're describing a motion that is beginning to happen. All right, Yaktashi.
Located there.
So the high-toned I, or double A, it means there at a place. And it's just context to know whether it's this one or the next one. It's more often, it's a location type of thing, just to say there at that place. And a lot of times it means the place has been referenced before, or maybe the place isn't particularly important. So if we yuch, so rotary, turning over, it's talking about some kind of motion that's going on.
Shuyach or shuyach. Adjudatory, turning over endwise.
So it's turning over, but it's specifying how it's happening, like end over end is what's going on there.
Hini and hini. Inacquative, into water.
So into water. So hini comes before it. That just means whatever the verb is going on, it's going into the water, like jumping or something. Hini would pop up right before.
Gage. Abumbrative.
We have to,
Abumbrative. From shadow into open.
So gaggi means it's somewhere where you can't really see it, or it's in the shadows and it comes forward. This one is used to talk about at u. You'd say gagu at uwa'at. They have walked out. They have brought forward. Right? We have brought these things forward. Our at u. We've brought them out of the boxes, and now we've brought them here.
Igay, silvative, from woods to shore.
So it comes from iq, which means from the woods, moving towards the shore, another shore-based directional type of thing. And so it might pop up in front of a verb to indicate that the movement is going towards the ocean from the interior.
Doggy, abaquative, from water to shore.
Right. So the actual linguistic term is not important, but what's important is remembering the context. So this one comes from daq, which means to be going from the ocean towards the shore. Daqi. And so what's interesting is when these become parts of verbs, they act as if they're being possessed. Hini, iqi, daqi. But you'll see them, and just knowing these and having this chart there, the big thing is when you start looking at complicated verb phrases is being able to spot, hey, maybe this is one of those things. And then you can come to this chart and look it up. Yeah, so most often means astray or lost. So you could say, "Qutwukut." He got lost. She got lost. And then "qut" just means lost, but it could come in front of other types of things to imply that it's gone now. All right, yaktushi.
Yan, yach, yande.
So, depending on the verb, like you might say, yanjihwane. I worked on it and I finished it. Right? So the yan in front of it, if it's a verb of action like that, it means it's done. It happened and it's completed. There's an identical one below it because they're related, which means to be going ashore from the ocean.
Yuck. Eating outside.
Yeah, so it usually have some sort of locative associated with it, and that's you see it on the end there. Yuch.
Yach, in vehicular, intervehicle.
So there's a direction that talks about getting into some sort of vehicle. And it would probably also work for a boat as well.
Hinch and hinch. It's inoperative. Into water.
So into water. And so sometimes you have the same meaning, but it changes depending on what type of conjugation prefix it has, which is at the middle, one of the middle columns, but we won't worry about that now.
Plus K. Uncontrolled, blindly, out of control.
So ukhke, so you could say ukhke wukukh. He was driving out of control. He was just driving wildly. And so it alters the way that the verb is functioning in the sentence.
Clock. By mistake, wrongly.
Quack. Yeah. Quack yukhatan. Right? It was a mistake. A mistake was said. Right? And so it implies that whatever happened was done incorrectly. It was done wrong.
Idach. Initials starting off or taking off.
So this one's probably related to yi being underneath, and then dach going from underneath. So it means it's going upwards, but it's emphasizing that it's coming off of something. Yach, it's going up. Yanach. So we watch the tone real carefully, because if you say yanach, that means it's too much or it's overwhelming. But yanach means underground. Yanach, through the shore, is literally what it's saying. Yaktishi?
Yan, yach, yande. Submarine ashore onto ground. The last part cut off.
Oh, it's resting. Resting. So it could be like it has already made it to shore and now it has stopped moving. But it's a motion verb that has to do with the shoreline, and it means to be heading specifically towards the shore. Because we have dak, which means also from the sea to the shore. But yan would be like getting ready to land, and it has some specific place on the land where it's going. Next day. So inside or heading home or into a building.
Hach, hade. Here, this way, towards speaker.
So ha is this space around us. And with some of these, we see them taking on postpositions. Right? Like not all of these do, but yun, yach, yunde, the last two are taking on postpositions. Nech could be necht with a postposition. Nech, nechte. So to arrive at, to be at, and to head towards. And same with the next one down. Here. It arrived here, it is here, it's heading here.
Yut, yuch, yude. Hence, away, off, an indefinite location.
So it's related to you, which is over yonder, far away. It's there, it arrived there, it is there, it's heading there. Let's get the good ones. Okay.
I have trouble with the English too, so affirmative, a back, reverse direction.
Yeah. So it literally means to turn around. Like you can say kochte nagu. Go back. You're telling someone to go back. Right? So koch means to return, but it literally kind of means to just go backwards from the way that you're going.
Aground into shallow water.
So you notice it almost sounds exactly the same, but there are no underlines on either of them. So you go from koch to koch, and that means like you're going along and then you run ashore. So you can see Tlingit people lived right next to the water, and you can tell because it's all over in the language. Running ashore, going to the shore, running aground, and these types of things.
Well, so it sounds like
Yeah.
K, upward.
So K is upward. Kinde is very similar, but K would be, to be going upwards. Yeah, we're not. The Tongass, it would just be that there's no tone and it ends in an H. Yay. Yay.
Downward, out of the vehicle.
So it's moving downward, or it's getting out of a vehicle, stepping out of something that was moving. Okay. Yaktishi.
Yake, yeek, eek. the literal, down to shore, beach. I don't know what the rest says.
No, beach word. So your heading, it indicates that it's moving from the inland to the shore. Yik, yik, yik. Okay?
Duck. Or duck. 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 And duck. Duck. Inland from shore, back from open, off of fire.
So off of fire would be another one, right? Like it's coming off of the fire, which is interesting that it would use the same thing. And so dak would mean going up to the inland, away from the ocean. And this is why we call Tlingit people who live in the interior the communities of what are now Carcross, Teslin, and Atlin. We call them Dakka Tlingit. It means inland on people. And they would call us Ka Tlingit, ocean on people.
The ocean's on us.
We're on the ocean.
So,
It's just that's how it functions in Tlingit. Is whatever it is on, and then whatever's on it. That's, the ocean's on us.
Dog, dog, dog. Add marine, seaward into open, falling from sky onto fire.
So again, you've got these other sort of directionals that get sort of tossed in it, but the base of it is you're moving from the shore and you're moving out to sea. And it pops up in verb phrases. A lot of them would be perhaps directionals when you're, head out that way. Okay.
Yay, yay, yay. Sorry. Manner, thus, so, yay is thematic.
So it kind of affirms the way that things happen. Sometimes it functions as sort of just a generic sort of a preverb, but yay janae, yay yati, you're going to see this one pop up all over the place. It just means sort of like thus, but sometimes you don't have to translate. You just remember that it changes the overall meaning of the verb, and you remember how it does that.
Mental state or activity.
Yep, and so when we're getting into these ones, there are ones that are identical, but this one, it talks about a mental state or activity, and just look at the context of the whole verb, and then you'll be able to figure it out. And we'll find some examples, and we'll keep an eye on them, but mainly I want you to know that these things do exist, and when you start encountering verbs, or someone's asking you what something means, you have these tools to try and take a look at it.
You, alternating back and forth, to and fro.
So that's how you got it. But again, sometimes if it pairs with a repetitive thing, like you do a song, that doesn't necessarily mean someone is calling that and they're moving back and forth, or something's moving back and forth. But it just it functions as a preverb that ties into something and doesn't necessarily have meaning.
Yeah. Along, down, obliquely, progressive.
So again, it's moving along, it's going down, it functions as a preverb, and we'll find some examples. All right, any questions?
millions.
Millions? All right, let's take a look at Intermediate Tlingit. Where do we leave off?
On that page.
Page 48.
42?
48. Kakwe. Do I know?
Gusu Hakwe Isikuge.
Wait, Akada Kehitiku. Yesu. Hekosaku Pastor Ahati Hideshu Watan. Are they still up?
Spikes is close.
Okay, Hooch. Five, I think. Oh, that one?
That's two that might be open, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can get coffee. Really go for another 15 or 20 minutes tonight. All right. So here's how this part's going to function. We've got these examples from our oratory, and what I want us to do is to read it and to identify any parts. And so you've got the sentence, got the translation, and I want to see if you can what you can identify in there as far as any type of suffixes, directional types of things, or things that you see that are functioning in terms of verbs. And we'll just spend some time talking about each of these sentences.
Start from the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yanach away.
Oh. Where are you at? 48?
Yeah, 48.
No, 48?
He's reading Kadishan at the top for the first speaker.
Do you have like an old one or a new one?
I have the old one.
Ah, okay.
Issue.
Yahweh Ya Kado Yahda Wuch. Here the tide would leave it dry from under it.
Yahweh ayit yaktuwa uchtuwuch. Okay? So we don't have to worry about the verb. There's some things going on in the verb we're not too worried about. What kinds of things do you see as far as location, direction, suffixes, any of those types of things?
Does everybody?
The yeet is the under it,
Yit is under it, and it has a suffix.
which is the underline K.
This,
Is it the T?
X.
it's a TX.
Yeah,
Yes. And what is that one?
That's to come from underneath something.
Yeah, so what you have there is, if we were to break that apart, you would have ye, which is underneath something, plus dach. And we remember that dach, when it attaches to something that ends with a vowel, will sometimes turn into a TX. And we get ye from underneath it. Are there any others in there?
There's that.
There's that. Right. In this case, it's not a locative, but it does function like that with a few particular verbs. So we've got yah, which is yah would mean this here, residing, located here. Yah, so here, it came out from under it. And then we got yakda wuch. So wuch would mean to leave it dry, and then the ch at the end. What you've got going on is the ya and the ch combine to make a repetitive verb, like it continued to do this action. When you see a ch attached to a noun, that means it's telling you who is doing the action. when you have a CH attached to a verb, it's telling you the verb is in a repetitive form. It keeps happening. Okay?
Hasaya, yad. This is them here.
The T.
Yeah, so the T, which means like to be located at, or specifically to arrive at. Hasaya, yacht. So yacht, you're saying it's right here, it's located here. It has arrived here. Okay?
So in that sentence, you said on Monday, who instead of he or she is here, like I, would you just convert that to ha, hat?
Like kashyat khat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that would be really weird because you're here. But yeah, I mean, theoretically you could say, yeah, you could, but it wouldn't make any logical sense, would be a problem. But you could say it maybe metaphorically, like you're real tired. Kashyat khat, I'm not here. And then, people might grasp what you're saying. Yeah.
Yat atut ahan ah. Ya and T again.
Yeah, so ya, and in this case, ya could just mean here, this space. The T would mean to be located at, to be touching or arriving at.
Is hun like stand?
Hun is the verb for standing. Yeah? Anybody?
It's the
Yat
first one.
atut ahun ah. Well, I'll give you what's ah. Do you know what? It would just be one. Here's one. A thing.
And the T is to be
So the T is to be located at. We've got that one. Now there's one left.
Is there something for like wearing? Or is that just kind of
It's implied.
Implied,
There's
yeah.
the A, which would mean it. And what's after the A? Toot.
someone?
where?
So literally what's being said here, here at, atut, inside at, hun, standing inside of it, one. Here is one standing inside of it, right? So and it gets translated as wearing it, but that's a really interesting thing because grammatically, and in the speech she's talking about atu and other things. Here is someone standing inside of it. Okay. Any postpositions or anything we've got?
Do.
Yeah, so yadu is it is here. Right. Collectively, that one is it is here. Okay?
Away, wait. That's the one there.
There's a T for standing, or no, for being
Or
located.
being at, or to be touching or arriving at. And then way
Is
is
it there?
there.
Okay.
There is one there. Wait. It's right there. Okay? Yad yan yi ach. So what have you got as far as directionals, locations?
For something to go inside your ears.
Well, ach on its own means to hear. But we could take a look at this verb because there's a number of things that we just read that are located right in this verb.
There's the
Yeah,
the mouth.
the mouth. Well, ye would be you all. Ye ach, you all heard. Ye ach. So you all heard the mouth of someone. And then what would the yun part be? It's on that sheet. This is the one we just read. Right hand column. Yes. You heard the whole thing, right, is what she's saying. You heard it completely. Right? And so it's neat that, when you read the translation of these things, you get what's being said, but when you break down the grammar, you see how it's functioning. It's here, you heard him completely. Good. Next one. Who's got this? Oh, Yakutishi.
Ya tut han ya yi at. Oh. Did we just do that one?
No, that one's yours. And what kinds of directionals or postpositions can you notice there? Yep. Oh, go ahead.
The ya.
Yeah, so ya would be here. And the T would mean arriving at or being located at. What about atut?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So atu is inside something, inside it. And then the T would mean to be located. So it says, located here, inside of it, hun, standing, ya, ye, at. This, your all's auntie. So it's saying, here is your paternal auntie standing inside of it. Okay. Next one.
Chu, u, sagu, wech, ani, an, I, dei, an, han, sani.
Ushuku achawech an itayin an han isani.
Sani is uncle.
Yeah, isani is your paternal uncle.
Han is here. Right?
Standing.
Han is stand. Stand. But then in this case you have on. Han
Standing in front of you.
standing with. So on is with it. AA plus the N. In this case the N is to be with something. A is it. So he's standing with it. Wek on. He's located right there with it. Itayin would be in front of you. Chushugu acha, the same one. Chushugu means the same. Chushugu. Yes, that's probably the toughest one we've had yet. Yep.
Yad, hun, yad. Here someone stands here. So hun stand, someone, the one, and yacht is here.
Yacht is located here. Yep.
Ya do
So yadu is it is here. One. Yep. Good.
Away, that wait. That's it there now.
is ye dut? Is that like now?
Yidet means now.
Okay.
Yep. So the only real directional one in here is at the end.
Wait.
Wait. It's right there. It's located there. Okay? Good.
Yak on. Doc who hoot. He came out here with it. So pinched X. And
Ya. So it's located here. Yep.
With it.
With it. On is with it. And then we got the verb phrase doc uwakut. So uwakut means he has walked.
Is it
Doc
around?
from
Doc.
to come from something.
Or around?
Now, in this case, it's the doc we've got from the handout. So when we refer back to the sheet, doc, it's right there. Like he's walking into the open, right?
It's walking from something.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of these location things, and it has to do with the ocean. It's like it's basically the image is like he has walked out of the forest with it. It's how you can sort of picture it in your mind. Okay. A few more. Yep. Yep. Yeah, yacht. So it's located here on hun. So he or she is standing with it. All right. Last one of the evening. Yep, do she?
Yeah, yeah, this one. Nah. No.
Yeah, this one we haven't really done a whole lot. Yanach, when it pops up in front of something like that, it means through this, but it means this side. Yanach, it's this side of it. A yanach, if it was reversed, a yanach means it's more than it. But when it pops up before, so it would say, and the at the end is just an emphasis word. So it's saying, it was on this side, it really was. That's how you'd sort of say that. All right. Yeah. Sheesh. That's it. See you guys.
This dock, if it had been underlined, it would have been going away from the ocean. But since it's not underlined, it's heading towards the ocean.
Exactly.
You can assume that they're standing on a coast somewhere. They're talking about heading towards.
Yeah, so dock would mean going from the inland to the ocean.
Are these for us?
Dock would mean going from the ocean
I think I forgot
to the inland.
Yeah.
So they're almost identical, but they're exactly the
Can we divide
opposite.
And that's when those
Sure.
that home comes into play again.
Uh-huh.
My inside.
Chris cheese yak de sheet. Zie paach.
Amazing how just one little subtle place changes not really the meaning, but the position of the meaning.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty wild, huh?
So would we be inland from the sea? Because if Africa right over there, or would we be inland heading towards the sea, even though there's a lake
Well,
over
it
there?
depends. If we're traveling, like if you're driving along, and then you take a right, now you're going down. But if you go from here, then you're going down.
But if I'm sitting here looking that way,
You're not
it's
moving.
stuck.
You gotta be moving.
I'm moving this way. I'm moving
Yeah, so now you would be going down. Yes, you're going up to the land.
No, there's a lake right over there.
Oh, that's what it's
What was that? Show.
That's really terrible.
Third time.
No, lakes don't count. That would
Positive
be
way.
bikini. You're going towards
try
the
it.
water.
No, I kind of want to.
Sneaky blankets.
Just to show me up.
Project.
I am really terrible.